You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options. Facebook.com/TheOptionsInsider or via questions at TheOptionsInsider.com.
Join us now for the expert source for inside information on the options markets. It's time for Options Insider Radio with your host, Mark Longo.
All right, everybody, that music means it's time once again for Options Insider Radio, the interview program here on the old network where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of options and derivatives and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting, at least we hope so, Options Insider Radio Network. You guys know how to find us now. Of course, your favorite platforms, your iTunes, your TuneIns, your Stitchers. Just grab our website that also works, or our mobile app. Or you can always join us live. Grab that link via Mixler like you're doing right now. You can check out all of our live programs throughout the week. And however you listen, make sure you hit us up, questions, comments, insights. And these days, make sure also you go out and vote and play along in our March Broker Madness. It's fun, and you can win fabulous prizes. So it's always a good time to be had by all. Speaking of a good time, it's always a good time when we get our next guest back on the old network. He's an old friend, even though it's been about maybe 6 months since we checked in with him. He is Tony Saliba, formerly the options man about town, now the CEO of ChiX Holdings. Tony, welcome back to the program.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Well, let's start there. You know, every time you come here, you've got some new development or some new announcement. Let's catch up on the previous stuff first before we roll on into the new stuff. The last time you were here, of course, you were debuting a brand new book and a bit of like an educational tour in the option space. How is the book going? How's the tour going? How's all the educational initiatives going?
Book went great. We launched, we published in January of last year, and we did it in English and Mandarin. And our main focus was the Chinese market, if you recall. And we've since formed a partnership with a Chinese company that represents us in Shenzhen. And we've been training Chinese locals and Chinese investors. So that was mainly a calling card to get the credibility out there and work with our simulator, which has some fantastic features to it.
It's funny when you say Chinese locals, I conjure images of a trading crowd in Beijing or Shanghai, which would be hilarious. I'm assuming that's not what you mean.
No, it's investors mainland, and so that launched pretty well, and have a team working on that today, so it's really, really good.
Any planned new additions to the book, or any new tomes, or is that it on the publishing front for
Well, I wasn't really going to mention this, but I was just tapped last week.
It's just me and you talking here, Tony.
Okay. It's not for certain, but I was just tapped to do one of the dummies books. So
everyone who always does an options book, when they come in here after and tell me about it, they all say that it was great, and then B, they're never going to do another one again.
Right.
It was such a huge amount of work.
I'm very fortunate to have a great team around me. The very first book I wrote in 2000, I literally wrote it myself, and I decided I didn't really want to do that again, and so I mostly frame out the direction of it and do the editing, and I work hand in glove currently the last couple years with Larry Shover. And we've been approached, you and I were talking about the crypto space, we'll get into that, but at these conferences where I've been speaking on options on cryptos, I was approached to do cryptocurrencies, a cryptocurrency futures book for dummies. And so Wiley hasn't decided, but at this point, that may be another step into the publishing realm.
That'd be good to see someone, with an actual options background writing the For Dummies books. I know for a long time they're kind of just grabbing, I think, kind of any freelancer they could find who was cheap and making them the go-to person to write some of these books. And it's good to see a little bit. I'm certainly interested in the crypto futures one. Of course, by the time you put that one out, my options might be listed too. So
right.
You might have to have a new edition going on there. But you've been involved in a lot of other things. Outside of the space. We'll get to the crypto, I know, in a little bit, because that's pretty hot these days as well. But I also, before we get there, I kind of want to get your thoughts. There's been a lot of news of late about the ChiX deal, of which you were a part, of course, the Chicago Stock Exchange. There's a lot of talk about an entity coming in and buying it, of which part of it was part owned by a Chinese-oriented corporation that became a lot of fodder, a lot of red meat during the campaign about, foreign-owned entities coming in and buying what people termed to be, secure part of our financial infrastructure, even though it was, sub 2%, maybe sub 1% at this point in terms of equity volume. So it seemed like it became this populist thing, even though people who had never even heard of ChiX were just weighing in on this left, right, and center. So it must have been, I'm sure, of course, it didn't pass regulatory muster, we all know now. It must have been, I'd imagine, a frustrating experience for you, because here's, a legacy Chicago entity that was, quite frankly, looking for a lifeline, and they had one, and now it's kind of been snatched away at the last moment. So I don't think all the people who were beating the drum against it, now all you have left with is a Chicago entity that may end up being forced to shut down, which is, I don't think, a good outcome either.
Right. Well, next month it'll be 3 years since I was first approached to get involved with the Chicago Stock Exchange. And back when I traded on the SIBO floor, we launched a hybrid product on the Chicago floor, and I actually became a member there and spent time with our technology and tried to launch this basket that exploded overnight into the individual stocks. It was called the, I forget what it was called. It was a Chicago basket, I think. And
Exploding basket would have been a good name. I certainly would have paid attention to that. I'll take one of those exploding baskets, please.
So very familiar with the company, the entity, and you said sub 1%, it's sub 0.5%, actually, 0.4% of volume on any given day. And the thing is, it's a great situation with some great people that run it, and a very tight-knit group that the CEO, John Caron, got the company to a positive, profitable situation over the last few years. And the entity that came looking to buy it, the Cason Group, Chinese conglomerate, but founded by an individual, total entrepreneurial situation, 20-year-old company, multi-billion-dollar, from hazardous waste management and real estate manufacturing, wanted to get their capital out of China. And they focused on the ChiX because they thought that would be a good place to grow the listings of the many thousands of Chinese companies that can't get listed in China. It was a much ballyhooed situation in February of 2016 during the election, as you mentioned, where Trump, just somebody handed him a piece of paper and said, this can't happen. Then the Chinese redirected their percentages and came to individuals like myself to join their team. I got more and more involved, was asked to be on the board, and over the last 2 years, it was a struggle with the SEC because there were political factions working, not necessarily any realistic reasons to decay this, if you will. So finally, after literally 2 years, last month, the SEC ruled against this consortium of, the Chinese were going to own less than 20%, and it was all the rest of us were Americans. So the exchange is now kind of in no man's land, and the fortuitous aspect is that the whole crypto explosion happened in the meantime, and they are a target for one of the crypto venues possibly to become more legit.
Yeah, it's the rumor we've heard circulating around that one of these crypto billionaire entities now, which there are many now. I think the price tag initially was around 20 million, so that would be pretty much pocket change for them. That's what, 10 Bitcoin now, something like that. But something along those lines. And you're right, it does come with a lot of the imprimatur of an actual exchange is good. The exchange license, all that kind of regulatory things that come with that, I think would be interesting. So yeah, hopefully we'll see. There are still some lifelines out there for ChiX to grab, because it is a legacy Chicago institution. You hate to see it be driven into non-existence out of some misplaced xenophobia at the end of the day. But let's move on to some brighter, happier topics. Like I mentioned, Tony, when you come in, I think every time you come on here, you have a new title too. You're changed. You must have your business card printer must be very happy. But these days, like I mentioned, you are the CEO of Matrix Holdings. This is a newly announced entity. You just announced it, I think, about a month ago or so. So it's very new. I'm sure a lot of our audience has no idea what the heck I'm talking about. So let's start there. What the heck is Matrix Holdings? What are you guys going to do?
Great. Well, this has been in the works for a couple years. When I left Liquid Point a little more than 3 years ago, I had a pretty rigorous non-compete, as did some of my staff. And we set about to build out a next-gen platform. Anybody who knows the space knows that Liquid Point was known for its sell-side tools and its sell-side solutions, and we decided we would go to the other side and built out a next-gen buy-side platform. So I'm back together with, now that the non-compete is behind us, I'm back together with as many as more than a dozen of my former teammates at Liquid Point, including Jordan Naylor and Mike McNamara, who run my two companies. Jordan is the CEO of Matrix Execution Technology, builds all the software, and Mike McNamara runs the broker-dealer that handles all the execution. We're members at all U.S. exchanges, futures, options, and equities, and about a dozen non-U.S. exchanges. So we have connectivity to over 30 venues. We have a complete multi-asset offering where our algos handle equities, futures, options, and, of course, listed options. We have some of the best and diversified algos available. In fact, I think we're the only company that's not affiliated with a liquidity provider or a custody broker that offers these solutions. So we've got a very flexible, fast, multi-platform, runs on your desktop, runs on your iPhone, runs on your tablet or Android, and it's designed to be cost-effective for the buy side. We've got we acquired the assets. Well, actually, it's a joint venture with ITG. Their ITG derivatives assets, and that's how we got the memberships so quickly, because there's about 20 man-years of work there with all the licenses and integrations. Brought Matt Otto, who designed and built that technology out of retirement at the ripe age of 41. And we have an unbelievable team. We've got a very robust existing business. Even though we closed the deal in February, we have a very handy group of very sticky clients that like that platform, and then they're moving on to our new platform.
So let me just make sure I have your offerings correct here. You're going to roll out a Matrix Pro, which is kind of, you alluded to, that kind of buy side, probably has the EMS and the OMS side of also like the algo solution you mentioned there. And you're also going to have, it sounds like, a Matrix Elite, which is going to get you playing in the shark-infested retail waters over there. Do I have that correct?
You got it nailed, yes. The Elite is white labeled and can be dropped out of airplanes and delivered very cost effectively, but some of the most unbelievable up-to-date tools competes, with that live vol system. We have signal generation from Steve Kalasian, Ticker Talker fame. So our users can not only execute, also have idea generation. We have a lot of different tools that we've brought into the platform.
I imagine a lot of people listening to this right now are going to say to themselves, why? Tony, why? You already got into the space. You were very early with the liquid point. You're very early on the algo side. You obviously had a good exit there. Why do you want to get back into this fray now? What is it that lured you back into the tech side after you've already kind of been there, done that, and had a great exit?
Well, Jordan proposed to me his new platform a couple years ago and said, here's the architecture. It beat everything that was on the street as far as we could tell. We thought we could deliver it in a very cost-effective way, and a lot of the technology that's out there is old. I mean, even if you look at Thinkorswim, Option Monsters being retired, I mean, E-Trade's bringing out their own stuff. A lot of it's old. And with our new flexible, very dynamic platform, we thought that we could be there for some of these shops that the retail side are replacing their front ends. And sure enough, that's the case. And then with the partnership with ITG and being able to offer futures options, and equities, I mean, we have a deal with IEX also to deliver some of the best equity algos and equity routes. So this was a roll-up of a lot of great technology and our new refined technology. And when I exited Liquid Point, we had about 90 heads. And right now we're at about 25 heads, and we think we can do a lot more, maybe with this third as many, definitely half as many folks, and everybody is an owner.
These are interesting times to be entering, like I half-jokingly referred to them as the blood-infested waters, particularly on the retail side. We've seen a tremendous amount of consolidation in that space over the last couple of years. I mean, I'm hard-pressed off the top of my head to name a lot of freestanding brokerage firms that aren't part of some major other conglomerate. Of course, we have the OX team that got rolled into Schwab. You have the TOS team got rolled into TD. You have Scottrade and TD coming together now. Ally Trade King got bought by Ally. It's just one after another. There really are not many Mohegans left in terms of last of the Mohegans out there. So you're entering the space at a very unique time when you're positioning yourselves against some pretty deep pockets out there in terms of acquiring customers and things like that. Now you mentioned it sounds like you have like a little bit of a point of entry there with the white labeling. Have you signed any deals on that front? Are there any big names we would know who are going to be using the Matrix Elite platform maybe going forward?
Well, the names that we're talking to, you would definitely know. We're a little early in the discussions to disclose them, but there's more than 4 right now, both from the options side that need multi-assets and the future side that want to get into options. And that's the aspect that really excites me because, I bleed options, and I just think options are the best product ever invented. And the futures traders have a little bit of options trading prowess in them, and they just don't have the right tools over there. So we are talking to a couple large FCMs about bringing an options platform to their user base.
That's an area that certainly could use a technological overhaul. I mean, we talked to a lot of the FCMs and look at what they have to offer. I've often used the barometer that the future side of the space is, conservatively 4 or 5 years behind the option space in terms of functionality. So I can imagine a lot of them would be excited to have someone come and offer them something effectively off the shelf that they could use to close that gap quite a bit, because they want to keep the options clientele. It's a good clientele to have, but if they don't have the functionality, they're not going to keep them. So it sounds like, I guess if the plan works out as intended, the end user won't ever see Matrix Elite. It'll be some other brands. They're not going to be, I'm a Matrix Elite client. That's the plan?
Right. Well, in terms of, we touched a little bit on the crypto space. And as some of these new exchanges are launching, we also represent the possibility of being their front end to save them space. There's at least 3 right now that we're talking to that are not launched yet, that plan to go live in the next few months, that we're in negotiations with to use Matrix Elite as their front end. And we have a simulator, Vol Lab, that has AI bots that actually will trade against you with options personas that'll light up these new exchanges. One of them is going to drive a sweepstakes with a very large purse to get attention. They're going to list their own ICO, and they need some wherewithal to actually light up the screens when they first launch. And so they're going to use our bots.
I like that. Bots with personas. Is there a guy who's going to come in and just carp you everywhere and just be very frustrating? Because that would be true to life. I would like a bot like that. But I could tell, Tony, when you walked in, and even before we started recording, we started talking a little bit about crypto, and I could see your eyes lit up. You were very excited. So it sounds like, I know a lot of people have differing views on the crypto space, whether it's a lot of hype or whether it's real, whether there's a lot of there underneath all the hype. It sounds like you think there's a lot of potential there in the crypto space.
Well, potential in terms of the listed areas, yeah. So we're involved. We had to get involved having the futures access for both CME and CFE, and we have clients that are trading ever so lightly the Bitcoin futures. But I see this all coming our way anyway. So in terms of listed, regulated space, we look at it as another asset class, another product that moves a lot, and it's ripe for options trading. So we've built out frameworks for all of that. We have a crypto feed bundle that has 7 or 8 exchanges so far, and 5 or 6 tokens. It's multi-threaded, where our ladder will, depending on where you have an account opened, will allow you to see all the markets, but will highlight where you can actually trade, and does some of the pairs and some other spreading capabilities. So we keep moving down that path, expecting that these will get listed, and more and more from a regulatory standpoint, they'll be in our world, so to speak.
Speaking of our world, I've heard a lot of people who are experienced options hands kind of likening this new age of crypto to some of the early nascent days of the option space. The 70s, early 80s, when things were still kind of the Wild West. It wasn't as heavily regulated. It wasn't as tamped down. It wasn't penny wide. Puts were a new thing. It was kind of the Wild West back then. You obviously have been around the option space for a while, and now you're seeing crypto kind of come on. Do you think that's an apt comparison? You think there is a lot of similarity there, or you think they're completely different universes?
No, I think it's a proper comparison, Mark. I mean, I wasn't there on day one, but I think, as you said, day two, back in the 70s when options got launched. There's the same feel about this. Now, there's, a completely different segment of realization. So blockchain, which is great technology, can be used for a lot of different things, happens to have tokens that spin off it and some of them have gotten really popular, and they're a store of value to some degree. That doesn't necessarily mean, just like Napster spawned iTunes, so it's sort of a Napster subprime wrapped into a dot-com bubble-ish sort of situation in some degrees. But SIBO, CME, starting to bridge the gap. And yes, there's a lot of that feel of the 70s when a new product that a lot of people didn't understand the vernacular at all. I mean, shoot, a lot of people don't understand options vernacular.
That's 2018.
Today.
Nothing's changed from that perspective.
So but it's a product that or an asset class, if you will, and I don't know if I would call it a commodity or a currency or a security. It's a little bit, of each, depending on which token and what type of token, whether it's a utility or a security token. Those characteristics exist, but all I know is that they are ripe for options trading, and it's going to come our way, and we're ready for it.
people have been asking us pretty much since this whole craze really started hitting around Q3 of last year to the mainstream. When are we going to see the options? When are we going to see the op? Of course, we needed an underlying first. Now we have the futures listed. So it is an open question. People were hoping we'd see them in Q1. That clearly isn't happening. I had some interesting conversations with both SIBO and CME, down at the recent FIA conferences, and made it seem like Q2 may not even be a viable prospect for either of them. You have any insight into that? You have any thoughts when we'll finally see, a listed options market on these products?
Well, I kind of do. I do. I was speaking to one of my friends over at CBOE, pretty high up, and I was asking that question. And obviously, they're going through a technology conversion, and they need to do that first. So I said, so it's right around the corner? And they said, no, Saliba, I didn't say it was right around the corner. But I do think that it's going to be sooner rather than later. And if I had to guess, we might see it in 2018. I know a lot of us are hoping for that, but I don't speak officially, obviously. I'm making a guess myself.
Yeah, that they announced down at FIA that their tech migration for C2, which is their kind of smaller secondary platform, will begin on May 28th. So we know that's not the main platform. So we know it's going to be at least after May 28th. And when I was kind of picking at it a little bit, it does seem like there's a little bit more time we'll have to wait. So I thought that'd be a great opening for CME. I asked them the same question. I said, hey, are you guys interested? And they seem to pump the brakes a little bit as well. They want to get more settlements under their belt and so on. So after this initial feeding frenzy to race each other out the gate for the futures, now they're both seemingly pumping the brakes on options, which is surprising to me, given all the interest out there and how these exchanges are desperate for the next hot new product. Here they have one kind of lying in their lap, and they're not really racing to embrace it, actually.
I think they need to broaden the offering to issue a couple more coins, and possibly what I said, they need like a micro, a mini, a midi, and a maxi. The maxi being the 5-lot.
Yeah, the CME one certainly is the maxi these days.
And then maybe having like a millet Satoshi or a half coin, and then use them as a complex to trade against each other, like a strip or a crush, if you will.
So you're on the heading then that. Like a lot of people are saying that we need more underlyings first before the options can be listed. So, like you said, partial coins, because the CME one is a big monster. And then maybe once we have an ecosystem of more futures out there, then maybe. So then you're probably not talking until like, Q1, Q2, 2019 probably for the options.
Yeah, well, I mean, people say, well, the notional value of a Bitcoin isn't that big after all, compared to the E-minis, but it isn't really about the notional as it is about the volatility. So if you went out with a Satoshi, for instance, you could allow a shorting of them because you would have a smaller contract that if it got out of hand, it still isn't going to be that dangerous, and the margining would be reasonable. Right now, it's very, you get those coins moving on a tear, and the next thing you know, you've got a lot of margin calls. So then you could probably build an options complex around like a Satoshi, for instance.
Well, Tony, we've covered a lot of ground here. You touched on the book and your educational initiatives, touched on some of your Chinese initiatives, both with the book and also with the ChiX deal there. Talked about your new venture and even some of the growing hot world of crypto these days. Anything we left out of this conversation? Or maybe you want to leave us with a little tease of what you got coming down the pike for us? Now's the time, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, Everfish. Everfish is the platform of the future. We're working on that right now. It's a multimedia combination, all focused around trading, that we hope to launch before the end of the year. And
getting into my neck of the woods now, Tony. I don't know. Should I be worried? Uh-oh.
No. It's you may be part of it actually, Mark, but it's an all-encompassing man on the moon project that's been in the works for over 4 years, with some great names and guys who've had multi-9-figure exits in their businesses already. That we've come together to take our knowledge base of our different disciplines, options in my case, and it's a platform that I think will rival some of the current big names that are out there. So.
I wasn't expecting that. So you always leave us with an interesting little hint, a little tease, Tony. Like I said, it's always fun to have you on the network, and you have a lot of irons in the fire. I'm looking forward to seeing how the Matrix Pro and the Matrix Elite. You mentioned the white label. Any time frame on when we could think, we could start seeing maybe some announcements on that front, and all this stuff starts hitting the road out there?
Well, I would be remiss not to mention my good friend Jack Schwager, whose company Funseater.
Yes. Are you involved with that as well?
Yeah. Well, only from a friendly basis.
He was on the network probably about 3 or 4 months ago to talk about
Right, when we did the virtual summit, which was a great success. But I would just say that as far as a white label, it's coming down the pipe, and it'll be a domestic firm, although we do have our platforms in Mandarin also, and that's just a little bit longer of a lift. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, they can email me at info@matrixx.com. That's MATRIXEX.com, and we'll answer any of those questions. But other than that, it's been a lot of fun, keeping us busy, and it's always good to see you.
Well, there you go. That's a bonus in and of itself there, Tony. Well, I'm glad we can get you on. Like, we love having these catch-ups because you always have something interesting to throw into the mix there. Who knew you were such a fan of crypto? There we go. See? A new wrinkle every time you come on, Tony. And we'll look forward to seeing how all this plays out in the marketplace in the coming months.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/The Options Insider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.